Hi and welcome back for another Possum Stamps video. Today we're creating a Christmas card using one of my favorite stamps, which is the Ruff Life stamp set, available now in the Possum Stamps store. I am going to create a scene looking from the outside in using this stamp set. I'm going to apologize now for that glare. I didn't realize it was there. This stamp set is filled with lots of fun little goodies. There are 4 sentiments, a teddy bear, a dog dish, some bunny slippers, as well as a thought bubble and a tennis racket. Here's the window from my stash that I'm using. This right here is a Halloween card that I used this stamp set to create a Halloween card. So the stamp set is super versatile. In fact, I have a feeling that I will be using this for every season. So I've got Halloween. Here we have a Christmas card, and I'm starting with my shaker piece. So I do have the window that did have shutters on it, or windows that you could open up. There was a perforated line there that I cut through. I have cut all of the windows off. I'm going to start by creating my shaker well. I did stack one set of dies, 5 windows each. Here I have a 6th window, and I've traced around it onto a piece of acetate. I am a terrible fussy cutter, so know when you are cutting that it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, my cut is so rough that I do end up having to trim it down. So I am creating the window for my shaker bits, and I'm just going to add that piece of acetate to the back of this single layer. I'm using some art glitter glue. You can use some double-sided tape. I didn't want to have to trim down tape, so I went with the wet glue. I'm going to get a little bit of squishing. There is a tip to avoid this. If I would have let this sit for just a little bit longer, I would have had more of a crust on the glue, and then it would have prevented some of that squishing. But I was able to clean it up using my microfiber cloth, and now I'm adding it to that other stack of windows that I previously put together, and we have a nice well that is going to hold our shaker bits in place. We're going to start working on our card panel. I do have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. I'm trying to figure out where I need my brick stencil to end, so I've created a line at the bottom, and that is where I need that stenciling to stop. I thought I could use that double-sided Post-it note, so that Post-it note does have sticky on the back side of it, but instead I needed to use that Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo masking paper because the Post-it was just a little bit too small. In order to cut this mask, I'm going to cut inside the line. Again, I'm not a very good fussy cutter, so this is going to be a very rough cut, but it's going to do the job. Remember, there is the window that's going to go over this, so it will cover up any imperfections. I'll remove the back of that masking paper, and I'm going to place it where I need it to be on my card, and we're going to create our outdoor scene. I have a brick stencil that I have treated with some pixie spray. I did use that Post-it note for the bottom of my card. I really didn't need to do this because I do end up bringing in some hillsides, but I wasn't sure whether I was going to go with a straight line or hills. Again, I settled on the hills. I have pumice stone distress ink. I'm going to remove my masks, and now we can start stamping our image. I'm going to do a little bit of Copic coloring. I'm going to show you one each of the 4 color combinations that I did use. This was super easy coloring. I am going to place the window where I need it to be so that I know where the dog needs to go on this card. I want to make sure that you can see him clearly and his head isn't up in the transom. I'm going to use those same sticky Post-it notes to mask off the bottom where I don't want to stamp, and I'm going to place it back into, I'm going to place it into the MISTI, and I'm going to place it back over into the spot that I need it to be. And I need to lower it just a little bit. That looks good. And now I'm going to use some Copic friendly ink. I'm going to ink up my image once. I'm going to remove those masks from the bottom. I can see now where exactly I need that ink to end. So I need to stamp it one more time, and I'll just do it very carefully without putting the masks back on. And then when I dry fit the window, I notice that there's actually a spot at the bottom because I did move the window up just a little bit to make sure that the full head and body of the dog was showing. So I'm going to add the stencil again, which is super easy to line up. I'm going to try using what's left on my blending brush. That's not enough ink. So I have a small blending brush, and I'm just going to add it along the bottom of the window. Now we're going to start with our Copic coloring. For my reds, I believe I used an R89, which is one of my favorite dark red colors. I'm going to use that for shadowing. I'll blend it out with an R29. And when I'm finished blending that R29, I'll use an R27 and finally an R24. I'm going for a super deep dark red, and so that R89 is going to give that to me. And I'm going to go over it just a second time to make sure I really get those nice rich shadows. When I finish with this, I'm going to bring in a green combination. So I did go with traditional Christmas colors. And finally, I'll finish off with kind of like a yellow gold. So I did color up the pillow. And here's where I'm starting with a G46. Now the G46, 43, and I believe it's a G41. There's a little bit of disparity between the 43 and the 46. And so I'm going to have to do what we call scrubbing. And I am going to have to use my lighter markers just to blend that darker marker out just a little bit to get a much smoother transition. So I started, as I said, with the 46. I blended it out with the 43, and here is either a 40 or a 41. The cap is on the screen. I'm going to go over it a second time just to get those shadows nice and deep. Now for the stripes on that pillow above, I do use the G46 and I finish off with a Y19, and then we'll move on to the other gold yellows that I'm using. So I'm using a Y19 as my darkest color, adding those shadows, a Y17, but I actually use a lot more of the 15 right here to blend things out. And I must have done it off camera. I did add a little bit of the Y17. For the dog, I'm using E25, 23, and 21. The 21 is a little bit too light for my liking on the body. I think it blended really nicely on the face, but I didn't like the way the body came out. So I am going to go over and use the E23, which is my mid-tone, a little bit more heavily, and I like that blend so much better. Off camera, I'm going to cut a couple of hillsides to create a snowbank outside my window. We are creating a snow scene since this is a Christmas card. As I mentioned, I think that this dog is perfect for all seasons, as I've used it as a Halloween card and now a Christmas card. There are sentiments in there about having a rough day. I think it would make a very cute get well card. So this stamp set is going to be well loved in my house. So I've off camera stamped out a mask, and I cut it out roughly, and I used the leftover paper. Again, that window is going to go over the top, so I just needed a rough outline. I'm starting with some Pink Fresh Studio Sweet Mustard ink. I'm going to put the window over the top, and I think that it's picking up some of the green from my dog beds. and I don't like the tone that I have, so I will come back with a marigold, which is more of an orange tone, and that's going to give that illumination, that illuminated look, and it's going to add a little bit more contrast, which is what I was looking for. But back to the snowbanks, I did cut out the snowbanks from some dies in my stash. I could have went with that straight line like I said, but I thought that adding the snowbanks would just add a little bit more interest to the outside of this card. Much better. I like that coloring much better. So now let's start working on, well, we're going to add some black gel pen to the dog's nose. I do let that dry for a few minutes before I move on, but we're going to start working on the snowbanks right here. Okay, that's what I thought we were doing. So I'm going to add the two snowbanks together. I'm going to crisscross them, and then I'm going to add some glue just to the rectangle section. I'll place my snowbanks on top where I want them, and then I'm going to bring in my guillotine trimmer and I'm going to trim the excess down. Because I have so much paper right there, and because it's a little bit thicker because there's 2 layers, I thought it was better to use my guillotine trimmer than to try to use my long scissors to cut that down. These are the little shaker bits that I have. I decided against going with sequins because I thought this looked a little bit more like snow. They're seed beads with a little bit of glitter in there. I'm going to have to smash that down just a little bit because it's going to be a little bit too tall. And once I do that, I've added some art glitter glue to the back of my window. Again, I could have used double-sided tape, but I was too lazy to cut that tape down. So I literally held that probably for about a minute to make sure that it was adhered and sealed really nicely. To add more of that snow feel to this window, I'm adding some fallen snow from Nuvo. It's a glitter, it's a really thick actually glitter gel. I've added it to, I believe it's called a transom, so I added it to the window at the top in the crevices and along the edges of the hillside. Later off camera, I am going to add more to the hillside. I added a white gel pen for the look of snow, which I've done on a million other cards, but I thought that it was really falling flat on these bricks and it looked a little bit ridiculous. So instead, I added that fallen snow, which I like so much better. And it gives the card a little bit more sparkle and shine, which is my jam. I'm going to add a sentiment, and I'm using the Candy Apple Red ink from Pink Fresh Studio and a sentiment from my stash. It perfectly says, "Merry Christmas from our home to yours." And if you've been to my home, I have 3 pups of my own. I am a huge dog lover. I have friends who love dogs, so this is perfect, a perfect Christmas card for my dog loving friends. I added a little bit of red to that heart. I'm going to show you how this shakes and the dimension, and that's my card for today. I want to thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified whenever we do upload another video. Make sure that you like this video and leave a comment. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for joining me.